Speak to our correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who joins us now live from New York for the latest. A very good afternoon to you, Sherwin. Thank you so much for coming through. So let's just start with the developments that we saw playing out this morning. Donald Trump saying that he would go to the Supreme Court to dispute the counting of votes. What's the latest regarding that matter?
More importantly, Palesa, welcome back. It's really good to see you. We've missed you. Donald Trump, right, making erroneous statements as he has made leading up to this election, casting aspersions on the mail-in ballot process in the United States, the absentee ballot process that a number of Americans have preferred in this election as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. And so we heard two very divergent views from both nominees as this race is now situated on an edge, on a knife's edge, on a cliffhanger. You can describe it in any way you want. The point is we don't know who is president yet. Why? Because none of the candidates have reached the 270 votes, electoral college votes required to win the presidency. And let me explain why that is, Palesa. The swing states. We've been talking so much about those critical swing states that determine whether the blue candidate, as in the Democrat, gets to 270 or whether the Republican, the red candidate, gets to 270. And let's just tell you what happened overnight. You see this red wall in the middle. Donald Trump has exceeded what polls were predicting, particularly in places like Texas and in places like Florida over here, retaining those key swing states that were so pivotal to his election the first time around in 2016. A lot of conversation was about Texas turning blue for the first time since 1976. Donald Trump exceeding expectations, even though polls indicated that Joe Biden was within reach. Florida, of course, was one of the big swing states that if Donald Trump lost Florida, there was absolutely no path for him to get to 270 votes. Clearly an important win for the Republican there, and keeping him in the game, as it were. What's outstanding? Georgia. What's interesting about Georgia, mail-in ballots in places like Atlanta, which heavily favor the Democratic Party, that's a big precinct that is still outstanding. So the sense we are getting here is that Biden is still in play in Georgia. Georgia, of course, a traditional Republican stronghold that hasn't voted for a Democratic presidential nominee since 1992. North Carolina, it's trending the president's way, Donald Trump's way. So if we give that to the president, let's go up to Pennsylvania. The president currently enjoying a lead of about 600,000 votes there. Lots of mail-in ballots expected to come in from places like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, the big suburban and city centers that tend to favor Democrats. But can they eat into a 600,000 vote lead in Pennsylvania? What's interesting in the Midwest is the state of Michigan and Wisconsin. What we are seeing in Michigan and Wisconsin right now is that while Joe Biden was trailing for a long time overnight, he has now eked a lead as some of those mail-in ballots that favor Democrats come in. So it's looking like, with 86% of precincts reporting in Michigan and 97% of precincts reporting in Wisconsin, that it's leaning Democrat at this moment, but we cannot count our chickens before they hatch. In Nevada, a similar issue. 6 electoral college votes there, 86% of precincts reporting. We are told that the outstanding votes that need to be counted are mail-in ballots, and as the trend goes, mail-in ballots favor Democrats, but very, very, very close in Nevada. 86%, Biden at 49.3%, Trump at 48.7%, so that's very, very close. That hasn't been called by all the networks. Arizona, a state that has not voted for a Republican since 1996. That's the state where former Republican Senator John McCain spent most of his time as a United States Senator. That's been called by some of the networks for Biden, the first time since 1992. So Biden looks like he's going to win Arizona, turn that blue for the first time in many, many decades. So we are very much on a knife edge here. You correctly point out that the president continues to cast aspersions, talks about taking these results to the Supreme Court. On what basis, we don't know. The voting continues. The ballots are being counted. Electoral law is being followed in the United States. What fraud the president is talking about, no one can point us to what the president is talking about when he talks about fraud, Palesa.
All right. So it is still, of course, early days now to sort of preempt what is likely to happen. But what sense are you getting from the Americans, Sherwin?
Yeah, it's a great question. Listen, the concern here is the statements coming out from, the highest office in the land, Palesa. Any United States president that comes out and talks about fraud without providing evidence about how Democrats is trying to steal an election without evidence, talking about, the fact that ballots that were legally cast in a process that is determined by each state law in terms of election law in this country, to cast aspersions of legitimately cast ballots that are still being counted in a legitimate process really raises a lot of alarm bells for people within the president's party and certainly for Democrats in this country. The markets have also reacted to what the president has been saying. Let's listen to what a CMC analyst, a chief analyst at CMC Markets, Michael Hewson, weighing in earlier today. Let's listen what he had to say.
I think obviously the fact that we're lower today, markets are lower, is indicative of the fact that there's an enormous amount of uncertainty now about what the outcome will eventually be, because if you look at the numbers, the path to the White House is still open for both Biden and Trump. I think the biggest wrinkle of all is President Trump's assertion that he's going to go to the Supreme Court. I think that's very dangerous, particularly if he pursues that particular option. I think it's going to be extremely uncertain, and unless we get a clear outcome out of the Electoral College. So I think the further away the eventual winner can get from that 270 level, the better. I think the more clear-cut it is in the final outcome, could actually take some of the sting out of that announcement that he made earlier today.
So, Michael Hewson, they're talking about the further away the eventual winner can get from the 270 level, the better. So he's talking about, whoever wins this election should have a clear advantage. That might not be the case given how close things are here. But the president, Palesa, when he talks about going straight to the Supreme Court, that's not how the legal system works in any country, no less here in the United States. You don't go directly to the Constitutional Court in South Africa unless, of course, it's a serious government matter of constitutional ramifications. Here, you have to go to state law if you have a concern about what's going on in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania also has a Supreme Court, as does every state in this country. So the legal process, you'd have to start at the lower courts before it gets escalated up to the Supreme Court. So it's very unclear what the president's strategy is in terms of casting aspersions on this process. The analysis is that he's concerned that mail-in ballot favors the Democrats in this process, and therefore those ballots that remain untabulated at this point are going to favor Democrats in the hours and the days ahead.
All right, so and we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for that update.